Ketchup is one of the most popular condiments in the world. Although ketchup, which may also be called catsup, is most often used as a relish for hamburgers, hot dogs, and french fries, it is also frequently used as an ingredient in sauces, meatloaf, beans, and stews. Dive in as we look at the process of making tomato ketchup. How tomato ketchup is made. In ancient China, the tangy sauce was originally a brine made of pickled fish or shellfish that was referred to as ketchup. Fish brine, herbs, and spices are the components that make up the ketchup that neighboring nations have adapted in their own unique formulations. At the end of the 16th century, English sailors who were traveling through Malaysia and Singapore were so charmed with the sauce that they brought some samples back with them. To recreate the spicy sauce, English chefs sought to replicate it. However, since they did not have access to some exotic Asian ingredients, they had to make do with substitutes such as cucumbers, mushrooms, nuts, oysters, and other variations. 100 years later, when Maine fishermen returned from Mexico and the Spanish West Indies with seeds of an unusual New World fruit called tomato, New Englanders invented the ultimate tomato ketchup. One of the most popular sauces for codfish cakes, pork, and other dishes was the sour tomato ketchup, which gained popularity very rapidly. The procedure of making ketchup at home was laborious, and it took the whole day. In order to keep the tomato combination from catching fire while it was being cooked in heavy iron kettles on stoves that burned wood, it was necessary to stir it often. During the latter part of the 1800s, ketchup was made accessible for purchase, which brought a sense of comfort to a great number of housewives. One of the first top brands of ketchup that was sold to the general public was produced by the H.J. Heinz Company. The traditional bottle of Heinz ketchup, which had a narrow neck, became the standard for the industry. Bottles with short necks made it easier to pour ketchup and reduced the amount of air that came into touch with the sauce, which might cause it to become darker. Ketchup packaging underwent a revolution in the 1980s when plastic squeezable containers were introduced. When it came to pouring the thick sauce, plastic worked better than glass since it was not only more convenient but also safer. Containers made of recyclable plastic were also produced 10 years later as a reaction to worries about the environment. Primary components: tomatoes, sugars, vinegar, salt, spices, flavorings, onion, and/or garlic are the primary components that go into making ketchup with other additives. Also, granulated cane sugar and beet sugar are the two forms of sweeteners that are typically used nowadays. The white vinegar, which is typically distilled from 100 grains, contributes to the preservation of the ketchup. Allspice, cassia, cinnamon, cayenne, cloves, pepper, ginger, mustard, and paprika are some of the spices that are often used to improve the taste of the tomatoes. Some producers are of the opinion that whole spices generate a taste that is superior to that of ground spices or spice oils, and that it is also more subtle. Pre-mixed or encapsulated spices are used in more contemporary procedures. All forms of spices must be of good quality regardless of their shape. The many brands of ketchup each have their own somewhat unique recipes, which mostly differ in the proportions of spices or flavorings that are included in the recipe. When compared to the amount of tomato juice, substances with a thicker consistency need a higher proportion of sugar and spices. In addition, formulas may need to be modified significantly on occasion in order to account for differences in the acid and sugar content of tomatoes. These variances are brought about by variations in growing circumstances and the varieties of tomatoes that are grown. Developing tomatoes of superior quality. Manufacturers of ketchup are required to search for tomatoes of the highest possible quality for their products. The development of tomato cultivars that are better in terms of color, taste, texture, and yield is now underway. Due to the fact that even minute deviations in tomato properties have the potential to drastically affect the taste and color of the final product, consistency is an essential component. The process of preparing tomatoes. The harvesting of tomatoes is done mechanically during the months of June and July. The fruit is often transported from the trucks into a flume or an inclined canal using water as the medium of transportation. In addition to preventing the tomatoes from being bruised while they are being transported from the truck to the factory, the water approach cleanses them. Tomatoes are approved and graded by either the United States Department of Agriculture or state inspectors to fulfill the basic standards. Tomatoes are sorted, rinsed, and cut before being used. Next, the tomatoes are preserved and germs are eliminated by the process of pre-cooking, also known as scaling in stainless steel vats. Assembling. After the tomatoes have been diced and made ready for cooking, they are pushed into pulping machines, sometimes known as cyclones, which separate the pulp from the seeds, skin, and stems. Ketchup is produced by passing the pulp and juice through screens and then continuing the process to create ketchup. However, part of the pulp and juice may be preserved in a paste for use later in the year. Putting in ingredients and preparing food. A boiling point is reached by pumping the pulp into cooking tanks or kettles and then heating it. As a result of using fresh tomato pulp, foaming may develop. However, this issue may be resolved by using anti-foaming agents or by using compressed air. Sweeteners, vinegar, salt, spices, and flavorings are all added to the tomato pulp in the exact proportions that may be measured out. During the first stages of cooking, the majority of spices are added. It is necessary to include vinegar and volatile spice oils at later stages to prevent excessive evaporation. The onions and garlic may be combined with the spices, put into separate bags, or diced and added to the pulp. Sugar and salt may be added at any point throughout the cooking process. However, it is recommended to add the sugar later to avoid it from burning. At the same time that the mixture is being cooked for 30 to 45 minutes, the blades that are fitted in the cookers are whirling. It is essential to carefully control the temperature to guarantee the absorption of the components without overcooking the mixture, which would result in a body that is flat. Finishing and extraction of air. After the heating process is finished, the ketchup mixture is put through a finishing machine. Through the use of screens, finishers eliminate undesirable fibers and particles, resulting in a more refined consistency. Before undergoing any additional processing, the ketchup is transferred to a holding tank. It is possible to mill the ketchup at greater temperatures and pressures to get a smoother consistency from the product. De-aerating the ketchup is necessary to avoid the discoloration of the sauce and the development of germs. The presence of excess air may also result in the formation of unappealing air pockets and delay the process of closure. Filling and cooling. The ketchup is transported from the receiving tanks to the filling machines at a temperature that is not lower than 190 degrees Fahrenheit to avoid contamination. Following the filling of the containers with ketchup, the containers are promptly sealed to maintain the product's freshness. Containers for ketchup are available in a wide range of sizes and forms, including bottles with a capacity of 14 ounces, cans with a capacity of 10 ounces, pouch packs, room service sizes, and single-serve packets. In addition, it is necessary to cool the containers to avoid the loss of taste that might occur as a result of stack burning, which happens when ketchup remains at a high temperature after the cooking process is over. The ketchup containers may be cooled by either being exposed to cold air or cold water. The process of labeling and packaging. In conclusion, the ketchup containers are labeled and tagged with product information, which includes the ingredients, the date, and the place of manufacturing, as well as the shelf life of the product. Before being sent, the bottled ketchup could be subjected to further inspection. The full process of making ketchup typically takes between 2 and 3 hours to complete altogether. After that, they are loaded into trucks and sent to every supermarket on the globe so that they may be sold. Additionally, it is worth noting that the income generated by the tomato ketchup industry in the year 2023 amounts to a staggering $35.47 billion. So now that you have an understanding of the steps involved in the production of tomato ketchup, how impressed are you? Let us know in the comments. But that's all for today. See ya!